employee died after falling more than 50 feet. The company provided inaccurate safety information telling them that wearing fall protection presented a greater hazard than not wearing it. So, we've got two basically regular segments. We've got Last Week in Southern Labor and we've got Boss Watch. And both of them are an attempt to try to, push the balance of media coverage about workers and bosses. And, really, the issue that I see is that workers are not talked about. When we are talked about, we're talked about as like greedy or lazy or all of these kind of stuff, especially if we are fighting for more. We're always pit against each other, pitting workers against consumers when consumers are also workers, right? I mean, how do you consume if you don't have labor, if you don't have income from your labor, or you don't get income from somebody else who labors, right? So consumers and workers are actually not in conflict. We're the same. We're the same people. We're the same people. And so it frustrates me, the coverage that we see of workers, but also the coverage that we see of employers, because all of the coverage that we see in the media of employers are talks about, the Chamber of Commerce is doing this great thing. This employer, look, they gave a scholarship to these people. It's always good and nice stuff. And we know here on the Valley Labor Report, and if you listen to us in the audience, we know that actually employers are in many ways like a criminal syndicate. They break the law so much more often than the rest of us, and with much greater, to a much greater degree, right? To a much greater detriment to society. And so we want to talk to you about that. So every week we do a segment we call Boss Watch, where we talk about the illegal activities of Southern bosses, bosses in the Southern United States and her colonies in the last week. And so here is that segment for the week ending on September 29th. Over in Missouri, an Oklahoma-based construction contractor entered into a deferred prosecution agreement and agreed to pay $370,000 in criminal and civil penalties to avoid federal prosecution on one count of ignoring federal safety regulations that resulted in a worker fatality in St. Joseph in 2019. The action follows an investigation by the U.S. Department of Labor's Occupational Safety and Health Administration that found Skinner Tank Company did not require employees to use fall protection while working on the roof of the 56-foot soybean storage tank, nor provide fall protection training. On October 14th, 2019, an employee on the roof died after falling more than 50 feet to the ground. OSHA's inspection also revealed that, and this was the craziest thing, this is why I decided to put this in the, expand on this rather than putting it in the dishonorable mentions. This is crazy. OSHA's inspection also revealed that the company provided inaccurate safety information to its employees by telling them that wearing fall protection actually presented a greater hazard than not wearing it. I mean, how do you, that's astounding. After issuing civil citations, including willful violations for failing to require the use of fall protection and provide fall protection training, and proposing $415,000 in penalties, OSHA made a criminal referral to the U.S. Department of Justice under the criminal provision of the Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1970. Under the deferred prosecution agreement filed in U.S. District Court for the Western District of Missouri on September 5th, 2023, Skinner Tank Company must pay a monetary penalty to the United States Treasury of $175,000 and an OSHA penalty of $195,000. In 2021, nearly 1 in 5 workplace deaths occurred in the construction industry. Just over 1/3 of construction deaths were due to falls, slips, and trips. Of these, almost all were from falls at a lower level. The construction industry accounted for 46.2% of all fatal falls, slips, and trips in 2021, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reports. And that's a really important thing to understand. And hopefully, when you hear stuff like this, it makes you as an employee be more careful. And it makes you as an employee more willing to challenge your boss when they try to make you do unsafe stuff. Because even this kind of stuff, I actually just got an email from my workplace talking about how we've had contractors, we have in the last year a contractor die doing pretty routine stuff, like with there was like an incident with a chainsaw. And, that's not, everybody's used a chainsaw. Most people have used a chainsaw. And yet this kind of routine thing resulted in somebody's death, and it didn't have to. So be safe on the job and be willing to challenge your boss. In Florida, a U.S. Department of Labor investigation has recovered $120,000 in back wages for 24 employees after an Orlando franchisee of Chicago-based pizza franchise Giordano's. That made me really sad. I love Giordano's when I go to Chicago. But this Chicago-based, or this pizza franchise, Giordano's in Orlando, denied the workers overtime wages and paid servers only in tips. Like they withheld all cash wages. Like they just said, we're not going to pay you at all. You only work for tips, which is, how do you, I mean, that's a pretty blatant thing. We're just not going to pay you at all. Wild. The department's wage and hour division found that Sand Lake Pizzeria LLC, which operated the Giordano's pizza franchise location, did not pay servers a time and 1/2 rate for all hours over 40 in a work week and made servers work for only tips with no cash wage, which are both violations of the Fair Labor Standards Act. The employer also failed to complete time and payroll records, which is another FLSA violation. During the investigation, the employer told the division they contracted a third-party service provider to manage payroll functions and claimed the provider did not raise concerns about the employer's pay practices. But guess what? It's still your responsibility. Oh, man. Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate. Staying in Florida, Waste Pro of Florida, which is, you guessed it, a waste collection, recycling, processing, and disposal company based in Longwood, Florida, violated federal law when it subjected black employees to racist slurs and then retaliated against them for complaining about the behavior, the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission charged in a lawsuit. According to the filing, Waste Pro employees at its Jacksonville location regularly used the N-word in front of black employees, including a white employee telling a black Haitian American, "Go back to Haiti," N-word, and "y'all don't belong here," and "go back on the banana boat," and other racial slurs. After an employee complained, a stuffed monkey waving an American flag was left in his work area, and Waste Pro retaliated against him for reporting the discrimination. The EEOC filed its suit against Waste Pro in the U.S. District Court for the Middle District of Florida after first attempting to reach a pre-litigation settlement through its conciliation process. Heading west to Texas, Greg Orr Auto Collection Incorporated, which is a Birmingham-based Texas corporation, a company that provides administrative operations services for a group of related automobile dealerships across Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Florida, violated federal law when it fired a longtime senior manager in its Texarkana, Texas location to avoid its share of employees' cancer treatment costs, the EEOC charged in a lawsuit. According to the lawsuit, on February 11th of 2020, Greg Orr Auto fired the 65-year-old employee without prior warning and informed him that his health insurance coverage would end effective immediately. This came just weeks after the employee received billing statements for a costly surgery the employee underwent in late 2019 to treat a serious cancer. Greg Orr Auto maintains a self-insured health care plan that makes it directly responsible for its employees' medical expenses. The company knew that the employee's cancer treatment would generate ongoing health care costs and therefore replaced him with a significantly younger worker in his mid-30s, the EEOC said. The EEOC filed suit in the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Texas after its Birmingham District Office unsuccessfully attempted to reach a pre-litigation settlement through its conciliation process. The EEOC is seeking monetary relief, including back pay, liquidated, compensatory, and punitive damages, as well as injunctive relief designed to prevent such unlawful conduct in the future. We have several dishonorable mentions this week. I had to trim it down. Adam sent me like 30 press releases, so I can't cover 30 stories, but 30 press releases from the EPA, the EEOC, and the DOL. I can't cover all of that, so I had to narrow it down. But here's a few of the highlights, or lowlights, dishonorable mentions as we call them. The U.S. Department of Labor Wage and Hour Division investigators recovered about $37,000 in stolen health and welfare benefits from a Wendy's franchise that it owed 56 current and former employees by the employer, who violated federal contract labor regulations under the McNamara-O'Hara Service Contract Act. The EEOC alleges Hank's Furniture in Pensacola, Florida, violated Title VII of the Civil Rights Act when it did not, but could have, without undue hardship, accommodate an employee's request for religious exemption to a COVID-19 vaccination mandate. Now, that's interesting, and I wanted to include that because I have never seen anything like that before. And in fact, if you're a longtime listener to the show, you'll know that we covered the Machinists Union Local 44 locally, their fight against United Launch Alliance, against their vaccine mandate in Decatur, Alabama. We covered that for a long time. We provided several updates on it, and that's just kind of a funny story because ULA is a huge funder of Yellowhammer News, which is a right-wing propaganda outlet here in the state of Alabama, who say that they don't like COVID-19 vaccination mandates, but you may be surprised to know that they did not report on that story once during the during the saga, aside from one instance where it was mentioned in a news roundup. One time. So that's kind of a funny story. The EEOC alleges that Cavco Industries and Palm Harbor Homes in Dallas, Texas, violated the Civil Rights Act when it subjected a worker to race-based harassment. Specifically, the worker experienced harassment and racial slurs after disclosing he had a multiracial family and after he refused to engage in conversations disparaging black people. Afterward, the general manager referred to the employee's family members using racial slurs and increased the use of racially disparaging remarks in the workplace. The sales consultant was sometimes left to serve black customers who were referred to by the harassers as, quote, his people. A family member was referred to as a, quote, mud shark. Management also took actions that impacted the sales consultant's sales, which resulted in a reduction of his commissions. Ultimately, Cavco Industries and Palm Harbor Homes fired the sales consultant because of his association with his black and biracial family. The U.S. Department of Labor's Mine Safety and Health Administration completed impact inspections at 14 mines in 10 states in August, issuing 246 violations. The U.S. Department of Labor Workplace Safety Investigation found that a Caney contractor could have prevented a trench collapse that fatally injured a project manager at a McAllister worksite in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma in May of 2023. The agency has proposed $82,000 in penalties. A U.S. District Court judge ordered Cypress Solutions to restore $575,000 to the retirement savings plan after it failed to follow its own governing documents regarding the use of forfeiture funds for several of its 401k plans. And finally, the EEOC is suing Asphalt Paving Systems for race-based discrimination and harassment. The EEOC alleges that black workers were subjected to the open use of racial slurs and racist comments, including the N-word, by employees and managers. Black employees were also subjected to demeaning working conditions, such as being required to work without breaks while white employees watched, and being forced to relieve themselves outdoors while white employees were taken to indoor bathrooms. Additionally, APS prevented members of an African-American paving crew from finding alternative employment by contacting a future employer and requesting that they not hire them. Really amazing stuff. But that's not the kind of thing that you're going to hear on the news very often.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.